3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Everybody, and welcome to the College Esports Update. I am your host, Norris Howard, joined as always with my colleague and friend, Coach Adam Antor of Aquinas College. Coach, what's up?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you, Norris?
I'm doing super well, and don't forget that the College Esports Update is brought to you by Zaxby's. Cure your craving with Zaxby's. But we're going to start the day off with CLoL. That's right. It is playoff time in College League of Legends, and here's what happened over the weekend. And Coach, your forte is here. CLoL playoffs for everywhere across the country are now underway. We talked a little bit about the North Division playoffs already, but now everybody else is caught up a little bit. So, Coach, give us the lowdown on what happened in the CLoL playoffs for the sort of cardinal direction conferences. We do know that playoffs for the partner conferences are underway as well, and we will have an update on that. You can check out on our brand new ticker down below where you can see some of the scores and results, the things that we kind of don't have the time to get to in the show. But Coach, I leave the floor to you. What's popped off? We gonna start out west.
This is what we have been waiting for, the spice of CLoL playoffs. We're finally getting to the point where we're seeing some intense matchups. We're seeing D1 plus players go up against D1 plus players, and it is not disappointing. We'll start out in the Western Conference with round one of the Western Conference. It featured two best-of-5 series that went the full distance. We do not see this in CLoL very often, especially this early on in the playoffs, but we saw it. UC San Diego came out on top against California State Fullerton in a great matchup, and then the other side of the bracket, UC Riverside took down British Columbia, which was a little bit of an upset, but nothing too crazy. Right. Cal and Arizona State enjoyed buys. They spent the week preparing for their next round matchups. Cal will go up against that strong UC Riverside team that we've seen, and Arizona State will meet UC San Diego.
And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, that sort of that Arizona State UC San Diego match is going to be something to watch, actually. If you are heavily invested in the West Coast, if you're somebody who's out west and really looking forward to seeing which schools will come out on top, that's going to be a very, very strong match to watch to see who may contend out there in the Western Division. Now, we go to the big boy, the Northern Conference. This is the one where we say pretty much whoever comes out of this conference has a chance to win a national title. How are we looking in the Northern Division?
It was a crazy week in the North Conference. It got pretty spicy. I like using the word spicy, and this is the opportunity where I get to start using it. And we even had a few upsets. Of course, with the level of talent in the North, it's bound to happen, but it still leaves a sense of shock when you see a team that you think is going to be a top 5 team in the country go down in these early rounds of the playoffs. But we saw it. So we'll start with Columbia College versus Purdue. Columbia College entering this week as potentially a top 5 team in the country. Coaches polls out there put them in that top 5 spot. Some of them put them as high as 2. But they walk away from the Rift, dropping the series against a Purdue squad that's looking really strong right now. Definitely the first big upset of the tournament. But they'll go up against a strong Maryville University next week after Maryville takes down a strong Michigan State roster. So really excited to see that match come up this week.
Yeah, and I want to jump in here on this Columbia College upset, because one of the big things here when it comes to Columbia College is that even the other teams in this division and across the country view Columbia as one of the best programs in the country for league. Way back in the fall semester, we had a conversation with Maryville about who they saw as rivals in Collegiate League of Legends from a programmatic standpoint. Which teams did they see as true rivals? They didn't say HU Storm. They didn't say North Texas. They didn't say, any of the other teams, Robert Morris. They said Columbia. They said Columbia was the team that was the closest to them in their eyes, that they viewed as rivals. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit upset that we won't be able to see this matchup, but Purdue earned all of it. They were able to take down a giant, and now they will move forward and face a strong Maryville that is still contending to be the best team in the country. And now we move to the other side of the bracket where Illinois State was able to take on Illinois Wesleyan in an intra-state derby, as we say in the soccer world. And Coach, what ended up happening in this match?
The Redbirds of Illinois State ultimately came out as the victor. This is an Illinois Wesleyan squad that featured some of their B team, mostly their B team. So it's not as big of an upset as you'd think, but this Illinois State squad is looking really strong, and they're starting to perform at their peak right when they need to. But what is really incredible is that every game that they took off this Illinois Wesleyan squad featured a different player on their team just absolutely popping off. Drew Dozer in game number 1 on his Yoni was absolutely incredible. Hyper in game number 2 on Talia got huge and carried his squad. And then Disconnector in game number 3 on Kaisa, just absolutely incredible play. And that's really important to see as your team is starting to get into the upper echelons, if you will, of the CLoL bracket. Seeing some strengths in different parts of the lineup is going to let your team really excel when you go up against a team like Maryville, like you might in the next round after this week.
Right. Yeah. And so moving on to the East Conference, obviously we have Western that took down Waterloo. York was able to come out on top against Ottawa, and Toronto took down Stony Brook. Most of those matches were either 3-0s or 3-1s, not necessarily close, but those were the results. But Harrisburg had a big game, and Coach, as you said right before we hit the record button, that there were some red flags for you that went up about Harrisburg during this match. Explain that a little bit to us.
Yeah, I mean, as Harrisburg, arguably a top 2 team in the country, according to a lot of coaches and the coaches poll out of eFuse last fall. I mean, this is a team you expect to kind of roll the competition going in past their regional conference playoffs and into the national bracket, but that's not what we see here. This early round matchup against this team, University of Toronto, Mississauga, struggling with that pronunciation, a school we don't really talk about. It took them all 5 games in this best of 5 series for Harrisburg to finally take the series, and that's not what you want to see out of a Harrisburg squad. And it's a big red flag for them. You don't want to be struggling in these early rounds of playoffs. You want to be clearing the board, going these 3-0s, really making a statement. But that's not what we see, and it's a really big red flag for me. Especially when you're giving full ride scholarships. You've got a coach, a full-time coach on your staff like X Special. This is not the test for a Harrisburg squad. These are the early stages of playoffs, and it proved to be a little bit more difficult than it should have been. Check the Twitter for the real spiciness, but definitely a red flag for me heading into the next round of playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And, I completely agree with you. Again, Harrisburg is the type of team that you expect not to really be tested until maybe a semifinal, perhaps even a final. And to see them go up against University of Toronto, Mississauga, and struggle the way they did and get pushed to the brink for all 5 matches, no, it does not bode well. And especially coming out of the East where, for lack of a better term, they're supposed to, like you said, run the table. This is not supposed to be a hard bracket for them, but yet and still they struggled a little bit in this match. So we'll see how they look moving forward. And very quickly in the Southern Conference, a lot of buys, but we did see the University of Texas move on, and we hope to see those matches ended up wrapping up very quickly. Yeah, and it was also a very, very big week in college COD. So I want to bring in our college COD correspondent, Andrew Stevenson, to give us the lowdown on what happened last week all throughout the world of college Call of Duty.
How's it going, Norris? Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. And so, starting off, Ottawa Black is one of those teams that continues to perform well. Both Ottawa teams continue to perform well. 1 and 2 of the power rankings still. They're becoming the story of the year, obviously. But I want to start today off with the fact that we saw somebody finally fall out. North Texas is falling out of the top 25, and we got Texas State moving up into the top 25. But Andrew, I want to ask you about Ottawa Black. They continue to perform very well. What else can we say about this team, man?
Honestly, after kind of seeing that they were in the shadows of their Ottawa Gold Associates there kind of just going under the radar, ranked number 2. It is finally their spot on the spotlight there to get that number 1 spot. It did take a while, as we said, 6-7 weeks to finally gain that number 1 spot. But what I did see was those 2 first split 2 games against CWU and DePaul. DePaul themselves were 9-1 going into that match. So I think with an opponent with that such high ranking and record, even though they weren't ranked, that did prove to all the other power ranking voters out there that they do deserve that top number 1 spot. With the impressive 33-0 overall map record, Cruelty and Noishi do lead the team in the highest KDAs there.
Yeah, and it looks really good for Ottawa right now. They got to be, either gold or black could be the favorites for the championship at this point. However, there's still a ton of strong teams out there that we need to bring a spotlight to, and one of them is number 12 Uni Gold. They had a massive comeback on Hardpoint, a map that looked like they should have lost handedly. They were able to come back, and in that portion of the map, 246 to 250 against Illini Blue. I mean, Andrew, this was a great match to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. 4-point difference to decide that win. And even though it was, the map number 1 to start out the series, that proves to be a lot of momentum. People who carry over with Hardpoint go into Search and Destroy and Control end up just sweeping the team. And that's what they did here. But as you mentioned, Barney out of Uni Gold definitely just clutched up some performances there early on and later on in Control to secure that objective and, eventually win that series 3-0.
Yeah, and very, very quickly, I want to talk just some quick points here. We talked already about the 2 Texas teams with North Texas falling out of the top 25. We also want to talk a little bit about CSULB Black. They stay in the top 10, defeating 8-1 Grossmont with a 3-0 win, and also CU Black sweep Oregon Green, a team that was very strong over the course of the first split, not necessarily getting off to the right start in split 2, and Concord Maroon performed well over LVC Esports. So, Andrew, we want to thank you very much for joining us and giving us the lowdown on College COD for this week. It is split 2, so don't forget, guys, that these brackets are now different. Only the top teams will play only the top teams, and only the less impressive teams will face off against other less impressive teams. And we will then have playoffs afterwards. So thank you, Andrew, for joining us on today's show.
Thank you, Norris.
And very quickly, just moving over a few matches for the Collegiate Overwatch Championship. We got 3 matches that were streamed over the weekend, and also again, check down below at the ticker for any of the results of the dark matches or matches that we didn't get around to talking about during this show. Now, obviously, Northwood went out and beat Washington 2-0. Second map a little bit closer than the first one, but again, Northwood making a great case for themselves that they are a strong team and a team that will contend for a national title. Also, we have Cal taking down Tulsa 2-0. Again, not much of a contest there. But lastly, we had HU Storm versus Ohio State. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I thought Ohio State would do a lot better. Performance was our Checkpoint XP player of the week last week. DPS player for Ohio State. But HU Storm pretty much ended up outclassing them in every facet of the game. Even though Kings Road looked a lot closer on paper, it was not very close. HU Storm completely dominated this match, and they continue to look very, very strong in Collegiate Overwatch. So that's going to be your college esports update. Don't forget, you can always go to checkpointxp.com to find out more news and coverage about the college esports world. And don't forget, like I said, to make sure you follow at On Campus Esports on Twitter. Sorry about that. Our social media manager will destroy me now. But at On Campus Esports, both on Twitter and Instagram, for even more news. And for my co-host, Adam Antor, I am your host, Norris Howard. That was your college esports update.